Welcome to SKaL, Sports, Knowledge, and Life. Let's learn, let's apply, and let's scale up. Welcome to SKaL, Sports, Knowledge, and Life. Today we are shooting session 9 of SKaL with a special guest, Kene. Welcome to SKaL, bro.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here for sure.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you here. I'm looking forward to hearing your journey and, the routes you took. As you know, a little bit about SKaL. SKaL is for the younger student athletes generation coming up behind us and kind of giving them free game and, gems and insights on our journey and, what we took to get to where we are today. So if you're good, we can dive right in.
Yeah, let's dive in.
All right, perfect. All right. So I usually kind of begin to kind of see how you're doing mentally and how you are in your mental space right now.
Okay, yeah. So mentally, I'm good. I do work in a stressful, demanding career. I'm a lawyer,
Okay.
so I do a lot of family law. So that can be stressful at times. Just juggling the issues that the clients have, as well as having a very demanding schedule. So that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment from a mental health perspective. But other than that, I'm good.
That's good, man. Happy to hear that, man. That's good. And your work is definitely important. And I'm sure you're busy. So thanks again for your time. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you. Thank you. So yeah, so we'll go ahead and dive right in. So if you can kind of just talk about, where you found your love of sports from, and then talk about that journey that you took in playing sports before you even got to high school. What was
Yeah.
that journey for you?
Okay. So I grew up in a place called Tottenham, North London.
Okay.
Right. So my love for sports actually started with football, which is what
Okay.
Americans call soccer. In America here where we live, we call soccer, right? So my first sport was that. I used to play that in school. We would use book bags as goalposts, and we would just, we would play anywhere we could find a space to play.
Right.
Then I moved on and I played that and cricket.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I would just play anything uh, until I reached the age of like 13, and my older brother introduced me to basketball.
Okay.
So, in England, we don't necessarily have high school.
Mm-hmm.
It's primary school from age 5 to 11, and then from 11 to 16, secondary school.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so primary school days was cricket and football. And then
Okay.
secondary school is when I got introduced to basketball.
Okay. And did your older brother, did he play in secondary school as well too, or
He
did he
did. He
just?
did. He
Okay.
played basketball in secondary school. In secondary school, I played football, which is soccer. I played soccer and basketball.
Okay. You
Um,
both.
and and then my second year of secondary school, I stopped playing football and I just strictly did basketball.
Okay. And what was that decision to make you just like, stop playing football and move only to basketball? What was that decision in secondary school for
Mm,
you?
Most of my brother's friends played basketball, and I was around him a lot. So that's kind of the influence of his friends and him was kind of rubbed off on me. So
Okay.
that's how I got into it. And then
O-
I started hanging out with people in my school, in my year age that were doing the same thing. So
Okay. 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 Now talk about that balance of being in school, being a student, but also being an athlete. I'm not sure how it is in England, but I'm sure there's some type of like grades you have to keep in order to be on the team and to still play. So kind of talk about balancing, school with sports, um, how that process worked
yeah.
for you.
So in England, my school team was good. However, they didn't have a grade requirement
Oh,
because because they didn't care enough to say, hey, you need to have a certain amount of grades to be on the team. It wasn't like that. Like
okay.
grades, academics and sports weren't tied in together in
Okay.
secondary school in England. It was
Okay.
either you were good at sports or you were good in school. There wasn't really a requirement to be good at both, at
Oh,
least in my
wow.
opinion. And that might be because the professional football track, soccer track, a lot of the guys start being really good at a young age. And then a lot of them drop out of school and just become professionals. So it's not, school is not, we don't have a university or college system like they do here in America, where, you have high school and you get recruited and then you go to college and you play. We don't have that system. So it's not tied into
today.
I think it's improved now, but definitely didn't exist when I was coming up. Now, we had club teams though. Right. And if you know anything about Europe, that's kind of how it works. You have the club system where you have the youth club system and then you have the senior club system, and they're usually tied together. So on my club team, my coach, rest in peace, Joe White, that's the name of my coach. He played college ball in the States, so he emphasized academics and sports. So he would make us do exams and things like that. If you didn't pass the test, you couldn't play on. And the club team was what meant more to us than anything else.
The difference between the club team and the secondary team, was there a difference, or were they the same and they want they wanted the same?
No, I'll explain that. So let's say, for instance, you live in Orlando, right? Orlando, Florida. And you go to Edgewater High School. I'm just saying the name of a school. And you play for Edgewater High School team, but you also play for the Orlando Magic's junior team. All right.
Okay.
Right. Let's say, so if America was set up like Europe, Orlando Magic would have a under 14 team, or under 16 team, or under 18 team, or under 20s team, and then the men's team. And the men's team would be the professional team that you see on TV, and they would recruit within their system, right? So they would nurture them and bring them up. And for each age group, they would play other club teams across the country. Now, your school team was just like for fun. Yeah, gotcha. Even though it was competitive, it wasn't real competitive. Your club team is where you played competitive, and that's where the talent would be and things like that. So in Europe, they have it set up like that. It comes from the soccer system, but that's how the professional basketball teams do it. So you'll see Real Madrid's basketball team set up like that. I think that's how Rudy Fernandez and I think that's how those guys came up.
Okay.
Yeah, in that type of system. So that's how it works in Europe, in most of Europe.
Okay. And the club team, do they pay them like the 14 and under, 16 and under, 18? Like, do they get paid, or is it just competitive? You have a chance to make it to the men's one day, or is it like, no, we're paying you something for playing on our club, even at a young age?
In England, they don't, unless you play for the men's team. You're not getting paid. So there are some younger players that will play youth and men's. However, when I was coming up, they tried not to pay youth players because the NCAA didn't allow it. So if we had ever been, so it would ruin anyone's chances of playing Division I, Division II basketball, because you're not supposed to have ever been a professional. Back then, that was one of the rules that NCAA Clearinghouse had, was that you couldn't be a professional and be an amateur.
Right.
If you played any professional sport back then, every year professional sport, you lost a year of eligibility. So they in England, particularly in other European countries, they would try not to pay younger players.
Okay, that makes sense. So during your secondary time, as well as, when you started focus on basketball only, as well as playing on the club, you mentioned that your coach was like, hey, I played in the US, so this is how it works. If you don't make certain grades or you fail in classes, I'm not playing you. So keep up your books as well as keep it up on the court. So when did you realize, like, hey, I can probably do this a little bit further. I can take it beyond the club. And then what were certain things you did to try to make sure that, you could get that opportunity to play at the next level?
Yeah, so there was some guys that came before me. And I'll name some names like Olu Babalola, he played at Clemson. Andrew Sullivan played at Villanova. Those two guys particularly came from my program. So there were people we could look up to and say, okay, I want to be like them. You know, they
Right.
did it. Now they're playing in the States. They're playing in major
D1.
Division I schools.
Right.
Yeah. So they were the ones that inspired us. And then there were, there was a few that were around my age, like Popsman Sabonsu. He went to my high school,
Mm-hmm.
secondary school, and he played on my club team. And he ended up playing in the league, So
Wow.
yeah, so it's one of my good friends. So there were people around me that were showing me it was possible. And then also there were some other guys that played on other club teams in London, like the Wild Deng, right? I'm
Right.
assuming.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was playing around he was a little bit younger than me, maybe a year younger
Mm-hmm.
than me. But his older brother, Aju Deng,
Uh-huh.
played at UConn.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was another person we could look to. There was Kojo Mensah-Bonsu that played at Washington State. So there were guys coming out of London from our program and similar programs playing major D1 ball.
Right.
So I was looking to them, and then I just got lucky and grew. When I turned 15, I ended up going from 5'4" to 6'5", so that helped a lot.
From 5'4" to 6'5".
Yeah, in like a year and a half.
That's crazy. Like I hear those stories about like Dennis Rodman had that growth spurt or Scottie Pippen had a crazy growth, but that's wow. So before getting that growth spurt, were you playing like were you dribbling like were you like point guard, shooting guard, like were you in the
I
guard?
don't know what I was.
You're
Because I'd
super.
only been playing for like 2 years before that.
Okay.
So
So
I
you were still
just
learning the game. You were still
yeah,
learning.
exactly.
Okay. So then when you got to the 6'5", and you're like, coach was like, yo, what the heck? Like came back, you're 6'5". Did they kind of put you in a certain position or you kind of know where you
Yeah.
play?
So I mean, at that point, I became like a forward
Okay.
center.
Okay.
I was 6'5", 6'6" at 16, 15. Sorry.
Damn.
Yeah. So I was maybe 5'7" the year before,
Uh-huh.
and then I just kept growing. So at that point, I was like, yeah, I need to I have to concentrate on this.
On basketball. Right.
Yeah.
So 'cause I think you're my first international guest that come on the SKaL talking about, not playing already, high school in the States. So you can kind of talk about that journey. I know you said you had a lot of, like teammates or friends that went before you and were playing at top schools like, hey, like, UConn or, Villanova and these big, powerhouse schools. What was going through your mind? Like, okay, if I want to get to where they are, I need to start doing this now, making connection. I mean, just kind of talk about things you did in order and then talk about how you were able to secure that, scholarship to come play in the US, or is there like a certain route you have to take to come from outside the US to play ball in the States?
Yeah, so I saw so many people I know personally from England playing major Division I ball. I thought that was normal.
Okay.
I didn't realize that was a difficult thing. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do, right? So my coach, before he died, had connections all over the US, and he was putting different players in different schools, high schools, okay?
Okay.
So and that was one of the things he would do, is say, yeah, we're waiting for Joe to call us to send us up. So I think that my skill set and maturity in basketball happened a little bit late, right? For him to send me, and then he got sick and unfortunately passed away. But he was looking for guys that were at that skill set and height and things like that when they were like 14, 15.
Right.
That didn't really happen until I was 16. So, and then around that time, he just got sick. So unfortunately, he would have been the guy yeah. But somebody saw me on a video on the internet. And actually, I'd spoken to somebody previously. I went to a camp in 1999. This is how determined I was. I went to a camp, and at that time, I was like,
"You said a camp in the States or a camp?"
Yes, I came to the States on vacation, and I begged my mom, I want to go to this camp. I want to go to this camp. It was in New Jersey. So she was like, all right, I'm gonna pay for you to go. So she paid for a Greyhound bus ticket, from New York to New Jersey. I had no idea what I was doing. Nothing, never played basketball with an American before in America.
Right.
That was a huge wake-up call.
Right.
When I got to that camp. I was like a small, skinny little English kid. There were guys dunking, do six, high major D. Carmelo Anthony was actually at that camp.
Oh, Melo was there.
Yeah. This is when he was in high school in Baltimore.
Oh, okay. Not Oak Hill, right? Not Oak Hill.
No, this was before Oak Hill. This was so he was like 16 back then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I got to see what the reality of what I need, where I needed to be. So that was kind of my wake up call. And then when I hit 17, I had made some connections out there, and there was a highlight tape that I was on in England, and I was dunking, doing all this blocking shots, all this stuff. I sent it to a guy, and he sent it to a school in New York called Redemption Christian Academy. So a private school in upstate New York. So they were like, "Yeah, we'll give you a full ride. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. Come down." So I got there, and the worst experience ever.
Yeah, but I do want to highlight, like, just making that connection. Like you said, you were in New York for vacation. You begged mom to send you to Jersey to play against top players, and like sometimes just being out there, like you can have one great play or one block or a dunk that someone's like, "Man, who is this kid? Where's he from?" Like, and like you said, you network, you talk to people, and then you went back home. I'm saying a year went by, you kept those connections. Then you set some film to them. Hey, this is what I'm doing now.
Oh, it was actually 3 years went by.
Oh, 3 years went by.
Yeah, okay. I went there in 1999, and I didn't come to the States until, it was 2.5 years, until January of 2002.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
But that was the camp that my coach used to work at in the summers. So that was the camp where most English kids would go to, like, get exposure, so.
Right. Okay, so if you can talk about your experience at the school that you got the full ride from in upstate New York. You said worst experience.
It was the worst experience from an academic and basketball perspective, but I still learned from it. So it was a boarding school, and I lived in London, a lot of freedom. You get on a train, you go where you want, things like that. I was a mature kid. I kind of did what I wanted to.
Right.
And I got to school, Redemption Christian Academy, and nothing wrong with what they were doing. It was their mission, but it just was horrible for me. They made us go to church every single day.
Wow.
I had never ever done that before. Nothing against church or religion or anything like that, but that was too much for me. So on the bus towards games, we had to listen to gospel music. We weren't allowed to use Walkman or CD player or listen to our own music.
Wow.
It had to be religion based, okay? And then the dorms were freezing. We weren't allowed to have a TV.
Wow.
We weren't allowed to speak to girls. It was like, and all of the guys there were like former convicts or people who got kicked out of school for getting in trouble. They were all good players, like Division I players, but they all had problems. This is a prep team. So, and then I just didn't like it. And then they were making slick comments to me like, "Oh, if you can't do the work here, we're going to kick you out. You're not going to have a scholarship." Just saying stuff like,
yeah,
just didn't make me feel comfortable there. So I stayed there for, what was it, 2 months, 3 months? I got there in January, I left in March. Yeah, 2 months.
Wow.
And then that was it. I just went back. I went to New York City, and then I said to my family, "I'm staying in New York City. I'm not going back there."
Oh, wow. So you left upstate New York and said, "You know what? It's too much for me. Like 2-3 months, I can't do this anymore."
Exactly. And then I moved to New York City, and I was going to go home, and I was hooping at some gym where somebody had told me to go. And then I ran into a coach that brought me in and was like, "Hey, I want you to go to this private school in New York City." But it wasn't actually a private school. It was like a charter school, but they wore school uniform like that. So that's where I went to high school for 2 years. And then I went back to England and came back for my senior year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's an experience, man. Goodness gracious. All right, so when you went back to England, that was just like see family and friends and then come back, or was that
I went back for like half a year.
okay?
Because I almost wasn't going to come back to the States to finish school.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a year older in high school, so I was a 19-year-old senior.
Okay.
Yeah, so I came back, did my senior year, and then when I finished, I decided to go back to England
Okay.
and just play ball and try and go to university in England. Because at that
Okay.
time, I had all these Division 2 offers coming out of high school,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't really want to play D2 ball. This is me being arrogant. I really didn't understand that this doesn't really mean anything in the big scheme of things. But
Right.
back then, I thought it meant something. So I went back to England and I played on our men's team and on the under 20s team.
Okay.
And then I was doing that, and then I got a call for a prep school called Laurenburg Prep. This is like a really big prep school
Uh-huh.
back then. So that's where I ended up going. That's why I got tons and tons of Division 1 offers at that point.
Wow.
But I couldn't qualify, and I had to go to JUCO.
Oh wow. All right. So the big school that you ended up going to, where was it at? Was it in England or was it in the States?
It's in the States, Laurenburg Institute.
Lawrenceburg.
Laurenburg is in South Carolina. At that time, it was like a premier prep school for
Big prep school. Okay.
Yeah, it was like I'm trying to think of some of the guys that went there. Joey Dorsey.
Okay.
That played at Memphis. Chris Johnson that played at LSU.
Okay.
Regis Kunja that played at LSU. We had
also big players. Yeah. Went to. So how'd you get that connect? Like that just came out the blue, or that came out from you playing on the men's team and the under 18 team?
No. So my AAU coach in New York set that up.
Oh wow!
It was a whole bunch of guys from New York that came down there to Laurenburg to kind of. It was like 10 of us from New York, and I knew all the guys, so
Yeah, so it was kind of comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. So it worked. These were all people I played against in high school in New York.
Right.
Played AAU with and things like that.
Okay, so talk about your experience there. So you went there for just 1 year, and then you got all the offers, or how did it?
Yeah, just one. I mean, that was a good experience because everybody on my team was a high major Division 1 player or mid-level.
Right.
And so I got to play on a great schedule, play against top talent, and get exposure.
Right.
Indiana, Tennessee, everybody came to watch us practice and play.
Man, to practice. They came to practice to see y'all.
Yeah, they would come to practices.
Dang. Okay, so at that school, did you have any classes, or this was just straight ball, or like they had like some schools?
That's the problem. The schooling was a joke. That's the problem. Schooling was a joke. It wasn't serious schooling. And I just didn't clear the NCAA Clearinghouse. They didn't accept some of my grades from England. That was another thing. Yeah. So they were taking like some grades I got in England and converting them into lesser value, like way less value. So that put me in a position where I didn't qualify. And at that point, I had some good mid-major schools. But yeah.
So if you can explain the clearinghouse for those, younger athletes that may not know what clearinghouse is, and how that can hinder you from even accepting an offer, like, if you don't clear it.
I don't know how it works now, but this was back then. This is what, like 16, 17 years ago. But back then, they didn't really understand they didn't understand grades from other countries, in my opinion. So you had to, I think, have like a 2.0 or 2.5 GPA and have at least like a 900 on the SAT to qualify. Something low, like 800.
Yeah.
It was low. Now, the standard was set low for obvious reasons. A lot of athletes were encouraged not to do schoolwork, and So unfortunately, that's kind of the way they treat athletes in America, especially young Black athletes. So the clearinghouse had that requirement. Now, my grades in England, when they translated them into the American value, they gave each grade a lesser value for whatever reason.
Wow.
I don't understand why. And then they said that they couldn't use my high school grades because what I had in England was the equivalency of high school. And then, so they were saying I'd already graduated from high school in England, which is technically true, but not true. Right. So they said everything you did in America doesn't count, and everything you did in England we're gonna take. And because your English grades are this, this, and this, they count to like a 1.5. That's what they tried to say.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What kind of trend? Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. So did the coach step in? Did some of your
everybody tried to step in, but there was nothing that could be done. So at that point, I just accepted it for what it was, and I was like, okay, I'm going to JUCO.
Okay, so you had mid-majors throwing like, hey, we want you, bringing you on, and then you're like, you know what, I'm hit with this JUCO because of the clearinghouse. You went to a junior college, but and I'm sure, because like you said earlier, D2 was like, bro, I'm not playing no D2. Like I saw all my boys go D1. If I ain't going D1, I ain't going there else. So now to hear that you had to go to JUCO, how did it make you feel? Like, were you like, did it? I'm sure it bothered you, but I mean, at this point,
it bothered me at first, but then afterwards, I didn't even care. It was like whatever. I mean, people go from here to the next level, so what's the big deal? I dealt with worse, so that wasn't really a huge issue for me.
Right. Okay.
So the University of New Orleans, I don't even know what conference they're in right now, but back then they were like a decent low to mid major school. Right.
Okay.
So they wanted to sign me, and they were trying to find a way to qualify me, or they wanted to bring me in, redshirt me, so that they could get there was a way to like redshirt you, get your academics straight, and qualify. I don't remember how there was a way to do it. So they were looking at options. This is like one of my last resort schools. This is the summer before my freshman year.
Okay.
And then they said after Laurenburg, and they said, you know what, we can't do it, but the coach was like, I used to coach at a JUCO. This is the school. I think you would like it. I can get you a full ride there. And I was like, I had some other JUCOs, but I had met this guy in person. He had, came to watch me play throughout the summer, took me out to eat and everything. And I appreciate the fact that he stayed interested in me, even though I didn't qualify.
Right.
So I went and saw the school, and that's where I went to school. My first year of JUCO was in Texas.
Texas, okay.
Texas.
You said Mesquite?
No, it's called Panola College in East Texas. It's like on the border of Texas and Louisiana.
Okay, gotcha. And did you spend 1 year there or 2 years at that junior college?
I was supposed to go there for 2 years. I went there for one.
Okay.
And then there were some issues with the coach and players and I was like, you know what? I don't really like this situation. And I could have stayed, but there was some other schools that were interested in me.
Right.
And they were like, hey, we can get you to this school. So I was like, let me check it out,
Right.
At this point, I moved around so much that it wasn't even an issue for me.
Right.
So I went and took a couple visits to 2 different schools, and then I liked the school in Idaho.
Okay.
Random, but
Now, were you still JUCO, or is this now a 4-year school?
It's still JUCO.
Okay, still JUCO. Okay.
JUCO. And I went there, and we ended up being ranked in the country, all of that stuff.
Wow.
Great team, great experience at Panola. I mean, at North Idaho. North Idaho had a really good conference. A team from our conference won the whole thing that year.
Wow.
It was a really, really good experience.
Okay. Now, I do want to ask you, so because you kind of bounced, like you went to the school in Texas first, you could have stayed to 2 years, but you weren't feeling the vibe there. How did the school in Idaho? Because some people don't realize how, coaches still kind of follow, and, people like somehow, some way people know that you're still looking at other opportunities, but how did that Idaho opportunity come to you, and how did that kind of play out for you?
So that when you're in junior college, if you're a Division I prospect, the schools that were recruiting you before keep tabs on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they come to watch you practice, they come to watch you play, and they call you. So some of the coaches were calling me and they were like, "Hey, what are you doing next year?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm thinking about coming back here." And then they would like put the bug in your ear, like, "Listen, man,
Yeah.
you should go here, and then you can come to us afterwards." So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, so Montana State is the school that guided me to Idaho, because Idaho is close to Montana. They were trying to keep me close
Right.
so that I could end up going to Montana State. So that's how that happened.
Okay. Nice. So sophomore year, you're in Idaho, y'all did well. Y'all were smashing teams. Were you still getting were you getting more letters from other D1s?
I was. So Drexel University was my choice.
Okay.
And they had been recruiting me since before Laurinburg. Okay. And they came out twice all the way to Idaho. And they pretty much had verbally offered me, and I verbally committed to them. That's where I thought I was going.
Drexler, okay.
Yeah, Drexel in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
But there was other schools like FIU, Southern Utah, Montana State, University of Houston. There was a lot of different schools that were interested in me.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to the East Coast. That's where I thought I was going.
Right.
And then, unfortunately, I didn't graduate on time.
Okay, from the Idaho. Okay.
Yes, and then a lot of those schools were like, "Nah, we're not taking a risk with him."
Really? So
Yeah.
So they want you to graduate before coming, because usually if you just play 2 years and you have enough credit to graduate, you can still move on to the next level. Is what I thought. Maybe not.
Here's my understanding of how it worked back then, and I don't know if that has changed, but
Right.
if you don't qualify academically, you can't transfer your credits. And I had an issue. I wasn't really I didn't take school as seriously as I should have.
Mm-hmm.
My first 2 years of college, and there was a class that I got an F in, and that meant that I had to do summer school. So it wasn't a graduation thing. It was you're going to summer school. That means you can't. That means you can't join us for some of this and all this. They want to bring you in the summer and all that stuff.
Right.
And a lot of schools are like, "Nah, we're not taking a risk with it."
Oh man, so school's starting to pull back. Like, we sent our offer because we can't bring you in now. Working out with the team get to know you, because you're coming as a junior now, right? Because you're not coming as a freshman. They want you to come in like kind of lead the team. Like, hey, I want you to come in, gel, meet the other juniors and seniors, and let's make it happen. But because you had to go to summer school, it's like, we'll just go elsewhere.
I mean, I'm a JUCO player. I'm not on the top priority of all of their lists.
Right.
Back then there was no transfer portal and all this stuff. Like now,
right.
transfer players are highly touted, and they have much more value than they did back then. Back then it was more about, we want young players that we can build with, and we want to make sure that we build from the ground up, things like that. It was a different mentality. Now it's like transfers, which every school's looking for the next best transfer.
Right. Yep. Every school. Right. You're right. So
they didn't really they didn't see me as valuable as what probably schools would now.
Right. Yep. So talk about your not taking academics seriously. I mean, how did that and because that impacted your opportunity right after Idaho? You had to go to summer school and then choose another school that was still interested in you, even though you had to go to summer school.
So I think that the problem is that if people are telling you and everybody around you is doing one thing, why should you do the opposite when you can get away with what they're doing? So if this guy's not doing his homework and he's still getting an A, and you're sitting there busting your ass and you're getting the same A, then why the hell are you going to do that?
Right.
So everybody was getting over. So naturally, I started doing the same thing.
Right.
And then there were people that didn't like us. So if we were traveling and we're on the road, they wouldn't let us make up our schoolwork. I should have found ways around that, but instead I just let those certain professors dick us, for lack of a better word.
Gotcha.
So those are kind of the issues I had. But then when I finished JUCO and went to the Division I level, I was like, you know what? I'm not messing around with school anymore.
Right. So you did. So after Idaho, you still made it to D1. Was it Montana State or what school?
No. So I had two schools narrowed it down. Binghamton in the America East Conference.
Okay.
And then Bethune-Cookman University in the MEAC.
Okay. There it is. Okay. HBCU.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even know what HBCU was back then.
Yeah.
It's true. I really didn't. So, I this is unfortunate but true, but there was a large misunderstanding of HBCUs during that time period.
Right.
I feel like now they're in the limelight a lot more, and people are taking the time to understand them and support them. It wasn't like that back in like 05, 06, 07, 08.
Right.
So everyone would say, don't even go to HBCU. They're trash. They're academically, the facilities are this and that. So I was like, you know what? I had a teammate from JUCO that went to Bethune-Cookman. He showing me pictures. He was having fun. He was on the beach. I was like, you know what? I need to check that out. So I went on a visit, and the visit was amazing. I went on a visit to Binghamton. I went on a visit to Bethune-Cookman, and one was in the cold and one was on the beach.
Right.
And that's, and I had family in Florida. I still do. So that made it
easy. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so you chose BCC, now BCU now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where I ended up going.
Okay. And talk about your final 2 years at BCU or BCC. I'm trying, we want to reference. And then like, how did that go? Like you say you want to take your academics seriously, so you're like, okay, let me buckle down. I'm still gonna play ball and do my thing, but I'm not gonna let my grades slip up because I'm just not, right?
Yeah. So at BCU, I did well academically. I ended up graduating with like a 3.6.
Wow.
And I played, but basketball to me was a little bit secondary.
Okay.
Because the situation was the coach had a certain style that didn't really work for me. But I didn't really care as much because I figured, I'm just gonna get my grades and then just have a decent career. And if I want to play pro, I'll just go back to Europe.
Go back home, right.
Yeah, that's the way I saw it. I didn't think I needed to try and go to the league. I knew that wasn't happening at that point. So
right.
I had to be realistic with myself.
Right. Okay. So you already had said, okay, coach got a different game plan where the style of play doesn't fit me. So I'm gonna just work on my books. I'm gonna still play, school for free. Why not? And then if I still want to continue playing ball after these 2 years at BCU, I'll just go to Europe and make this money in Europe, because Europe's, what I'm saying, different levels. You can make good money over there, tax free, pretty much. So after BCU, what was your, so it sounded like you did have aspirations to play at the next level, overseas. So what transpired after you wrapped up at BCU?
I met my wife, and we got married right after I finished school.
Okay.
And we were actually going through the visa process, right?
Okay.
And that prevented me from leaving until like February of the following year. So I signed a contract with a team in England, professional team. And because my documents took so long, I just said, I'm gonna take the LSAT. My wife encouraged me to take the LSAT, my wife and my uncle. I took it. I got into a few law schools. So it was either law school or go to England and play pro. And at that point, the money wasn't good enough for me to take pro ball over law school.
Law school.
Yeah. And I already had a wife at that point. So I was like, I'm gonna go to law school.
Yeah, man, that's beautiful, man. So you had to choose, like, hey, you had a contract, you signed it. You're like, hey, we want you to come out here and play. And you already know the ropes of Europe, what I'm saying? It's like every 4 or 6 months, and you have to get a new contract, or hopefully the team will renew you or bounce to a different league, a higher league. Or take your chance. I mean, there's still no guarantees, but take a chance with going back to school, get my education, and furthering it in that sense. And you chose school, and you got married too. Like, having your wife also plays a part too, because having her move out with you to Europe or y'all long distance for so long might not be the most ideal situation.
I knew how basketball worked in England and in certain parts of Europe. And I also knew that the thing about sports is that, particularly team sports, is that a coach can control a lot of what happens, right? It's not an individual sport. So I knew that with academics, I had a lot more control on the situation. So I said, what? I know if I do what I need to do, I'm going to get the results that. With sports, it just wasn't the same. There's only so far you can go. I felt like, and I felt like I essentially met my ceiling at that point.
Right. Okay. Wow. So at that moment we made that decision, you were finally saying, okay, I'm putting ball to rest, and I'm taking this route to become an attorney, which you are today. That was that decision. Okay. All right. So just want to actually got this several more questions to kind of wrap up our session. The first one is, if you can look back at your, student athlete career, what would be one of your most embarrassed or the most embarrassing moment that you can recall that you're willing to share on SKaL, whether academically or athletically?
Most embarrassing moment, I did a dunk contest at Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
And this was at halftime of the championship game for the PSAL, which is the Public School Athletic League. Lincoln High School, this is when Sebastian Telfair was playing. This was his senior year. It was Lincoln High School versus somebody. I don't remember who they were playing, but there were thousands and thousands of people because he was big time, right?
Right.
So I had all these dunks planned, and they involve other people, right? So the people who were running the event said, you can't do any of those dunks because they don't have, they're not signing liability waivers. So I was like, oh shit, I gotta make up some shit. I gotta make up some dunks randomly that I haven't practiced.
Right.
And essentially I went out there and tried to do some stuff I hadn't practiced, and it came out terrible.
Oh,
yeah.
Man, that's the worst.
Yeah, that was the most embarrassing thing I did as a student athlete.
Dang, at a Madison Square Garden, all the people. Yeah, that's rough, man. That's rough.
Yes, in front of like 25,000 people.
Oh my God. I mean, exposure is still exposure, though. I mean, but that was
yeah, it was exposure, but it wasn't the kind of exposure I wanted.
Right.
I didn't even go to school the next day.
Right. All right. So that kind of leads me into, what would you say your most proudest moment or achievement, academically or athletically, if you look back at your journey, something that you're like, I'm proud of that moment or that achievement, or something that you, like an award you got or something?
Yeah, I mean, I got plenty of awards, but I would say probably just finishing school and passing the bar exam academically.
Yeah,
I would say passing the bar exam is probably my best academic achievement.
That's beautiful.
That's
I like that. Yeah. I mean, I will say the bar is no joke. Like, I have a sister who's also, she's an Esquire. What I'm saying, she's a JD as well. And man, going to she had to cut off from the world to stay for the bar. Like literally, no.
You remember what she went through, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. She said, "Listen, I'm a hermit. I'm in these books, and I heard stories about people in the room taking the exam. It's a 2-day exam. You come take the exam for all these hours, come back, and people are sweating, panic attacks, leaving out. Like it's stressful, man. So I could listen.
It's grueling. It is. Yeah, that's a true story. That's a true story. People crying, having nervous breakdowns in the room, and they give you these big tables with splinters in them.
Yeah.
And the room has thousands of people in it. So all you hear is
Man, listen, I salute it, man, because listen, the bar, I know people who've taken the bar 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, finally passed it, but after several years? I mean, you still accomplish it, but it's no joke. So I definitely commend you on that. That's definitely a big accomplishment.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. But
Yeah,
you
no
know,
problem.
the bar exam is just a test, though. Reality is that the practice of law is more challenging, but you know,
Right,
they try to make you feel it's just a scare tactic, I
right,
think.
right. Okay, and then on to this. You know, as we all know, hindsight is 2020. So looking back at your career, you know, starting in England, coming back and forth to the States, going JUCO, had D1s. What was something that you would do different if you could go back, and why would you do that differently, or certain things?
Probably what I would have done different is go to a 4-year school right away.
Right away. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think the difference with that is that you get to grow with the program. And then by the time you're a junior or senior, you've kind of seen everything over and over again, and you don't have to go through constant adjustment,
Right,
you know.
right,
And I think that makes a difference.
right. Yeah, I agree. Like going to JUCO, bouncing, being the new player, learning the campus, the teachers. Like it's a process. The whole city you're in, like you're in a whole new city.
Exactly.
It's a lot to take on. Definitely. Yeah, and then just kind of wrap you up here. So this is what I call our scale up moment of the session. So if you're talking to a young middle school boy or girl, or high school boy or girl that's like, hey, I want to play at the next level. I want to play in high school or play in college or go pro overseas. What would be some gems or word of advice or encouragement that you would give them if you could talk to them directly right now?
Yeah, I mean, I would just tell them to work hard in school and in sports.
Okay.
That's key. I
Yeah.
think that's like an old given piece of advice. Like, yeah, work hard and go to school. But seriously though, I didn't really listen to that
Right.
until I got to university, college. But that opens doors for you. It really
Yeah.
does. And network. That's key. Network. Get to meet people. Get to meet people. Stay in contact with them. Because those people will open doors for you as you get into your career.
Right. Perfect, man. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. And then I just want to ask, what do you got going on these days? What are you up to?
Yeah, so I mean, married, have kids. I have a business, law practice. Beautiful. And I'm trying to do a little bit of agency thing too. I have one player.
Okay.
That I'm representing. Yeah.
Nice, man. That's big time, man. So you're busy, bro.
Yeah.
No, but that's good. All right. And then as you wrap up, is this any final thoughts, any questions that I didn't ask, or any topic you wanted to discuss about your journey that we didn't get to touch on today? This is the open floor to you to, say your last piece.
No, I'm good. I think we touched on everything. I appreciate having the opportunity to talk, and I'm looking forward to hearing your story.
Yeah, man. I mean, my wife was supposed to interview me, and she's just been, she's been busy, so I don't want to pressure her, but I'm gonna get it out one way or another, because it's
cool.
It's just a pretty wild, journey. But like I said, I'm grateful for it because I'm where I'm at now because of it. So, but yeah, man. Thank you for your time, bro. I hope you have a great evening, man. Take care, bro.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
Thanks for tuning in to SKaL, Sports, Knowledge, and Life, a space where we empower student athletes. Please like, share, follow, and subscribe.